Humanity's hidden power revealed. Ancient warships. Older than Empire's Rise story outline. Third-person perspective. Part 1. The Galactic Council's Ultimatum. The story opens at the Grand Assembly of the Galactic Council, where representatives from thousands of starfaring civilizations gather on the neutral station of Nexus Prime. Humanity, the newest member species, has been summoned to answer for territorial violations in the Outer Rim sectors. Key characters: Captain Minho Kang, commander of the human diplomatic vessel. Horizon's Promise. Ambassador Ji-Won Park, Earth's chief representative to the Galactic Council High Arbiter Velshara, ancient insectoid leader of the Council's military arm. Admiral Tai-Yong Choi, veteran officer monitoring from Earth Defense Command. The Council delivers its verdict. Humanity must withdraw from 12 contested systems and submit to technological restrictions. They view humans as aggressive newcomers who expanded too quickly in the mere 2 centuries since achieving faster-than-light travel. Velshara warns that refusal will result in a containment action by the Council's vast armadas. Ambassador Ji-Won attempts diplomatic negotiation, but the Council remains unmoved. They believe humanity poses a threat due to their rapid military buildup and stubborn independence. The Council gives Earth 72 hours to comply. As the human delegation departs, Captain Minho receives an encrypted message from Earth's Defense Command with a single phrase: Protocol Ancestors has been authorized. Part 2. The Archaeological Truth. The narrative shifts to Earth. 3 days before the Council's ultimatum, Dr. Heejin Lee, a xenoarchaeologist, makes a breakthrough at an excavation site beneath the Gobi Desert. Her team uncovers a massive underground complex that predates all known human civilizations by at least 50,000 years. Key characters: Dr. Heejin Lee, lead archaeologist specializing in prehistory. Colonel Junho Nam, military intelligence officer assigned to the dig. Dr. Somin Baek, quantum physicist and Heejin's research partner. Director Yuna Han, head of the Global Defense Initiative's research division inside the complex. They discover technology far beyond current human capabilities. More shocking is the evidence that humanity's ancestors were not native to Earth. They fled to this remote planet as refugees from a catastrophic war that consumed their original empire. The ancient humans deliberately suppressed their own technology and scattered across Earth to hide from their enemies. Deep within the facility, they activate a holographic archive. It reveals that humanity once commanded an interstellar federation spanning thousands of worlds. When their enemies, a coalition of the very species now dominating the Galactic Council, grew too powerful, humanity's leaders made a desperate choice. They seeded colony ships with survivors, wiped their memories, and scattered them to primitive worlds across the galaxy. Earth was one of dozens of such sanctuary planets. The archive also reveals the locations of massive automated shipyards hidden in dead star systems, still waiting for activation codes. These yards contain the mothballed fleet of humanity's ancient empire, the predecessor armada. Colonel Junho immediately transmits this information to Earth's unified government. Director Yuna makes the fateful decision to invoke Protocol Ancestors. Part 3. Awakening the Fleet Admiral. Tai-Yong Choi leads a covert task force to the first shipyard coordinates, located in a collapsed neutron star system in the Veiled Sector. The journey takes them through uncharted space, far from both human and Council territories. Key characters: Admiral Tai-Yong Choi, pragmatic commander of the reconnaissance fleet. Captain Dae-Ho Kim, hotshot pilot of the stealth corvette. Silent Dawn Commander Minji Shin, chief engineer tasked with reactivating ancient systems. Lieutenant Sang-Hyun Oh, cryptographer working on the activation sequences. They discover a structure beyond comprehension. An automated shipyard the size of a gas giant, hidden within a pocket dimension. Inside rest thousands of warships, each dwarfing the largest vessels in the current Galactic Council fleet. The ships are organic mechanical hybrids grown rather than built, and they've been in suspended animation for millennia. Commander Minji manages to interface with the shipyard's central intelligence. The AI, calling itself Sentinel-7, recognizes the human genetic signatures and begins reactivation protocols. However, it warns that full fleet awakening will take weeks, time humanity doesn't have. Sentinel-7 explains that these ships were designed to combat multiple Council species simultaneously. Each vessel contains weapon systems banned by every civilized species: reality-warping drives, causality missiles, and star-breaching cannons. The ancient humans didn't just flee, they prepared for a return. Admiral Taeyong makes a command decision. They will activate the Vanguard fleet of 300 ships immediately and return to defend Earth. Captain Daeho volunteers to pilot one of the ancient dreadnoughts, the Eternal Reclamation. As the first warships power up, their awakening sends gravitational ripples across the galaxy. The Council's long-range sensors detect the anomaly, and panic begins to spread. Part 4. The Battle of Sol. The Galactic Council's containment fleet arrives at the Sol system. Over 5,000 warships representing the combined might of 200 civilizations. High Arbiter Velshara commands the armada personally, expecting a swift subjugation of the upstart human species. Key characters: High Arbiter Velshara, overconfident leader of the invasion force; Fleet Commander Hyunwoo Park, human officer coordinating Earth's defense; Captain Yoonji Cho, commander of Earth's newest battle carrier; Wing Commander Jun Yu, fighter pilot leading humanity's conventional forces Earth's modern fleet moves to intercept, but they are hopelessly outmatched. The Council's ships begin their bombardment, targeting military installations on Luna and Mars. High Arbiter Velshara broadcast humanity's surrender terms: complete disarmament and subjugation to Council authority for the next 1,000 years. Then the ancient fleet arrives. 300 warships emerge from faster than light in perfect formation, their arrival preceded by reality distortions that disable Council sensors. The vessels are enormous Gothic leviathans covered in crystalline armor that seems to shift through dimensions. They dwarf even the Council's heaviest dreadnoughts. Admiral Taeyong broadcasts a message to the Council fleet: "You stand before the predecessor armada. Your ancestors hunted us to near extinction. Today the hunted return." The battle begins with brutal efficiency. The ancient human warships demonstrate technology the Council has never encountered. They phase through enemy shields, fire weapons that erase ships from existence, and move with impossible agility despite their massive size. Captain Daeho's Eternal Reclamation destroys an entire Council battle group single-handedly. High Arbiter Velshara realizes too late that the Council's historical archives contained suppressed information. Humanity wasn't an upstart species. They were the legendary precursors, the ancient enemy that forced all Council species to unite millennia ago. The very species they thought they had exterminated. The Council fleet begins a chaotic retreat, losing over half their ships in the withdrawal. Humanity claims total victory without losing a single ancient warship. Part 5. A New Galactic Order. 3 months after the Battle of Sol, the Galactic Council convenes in emergency session. This time humanity does not attend as supplicants but as conquerors. The remaining ancient shipyards have fully awakened, producing thousands of new warships. Dozens of human sanctuary worlds have been rediscovered, each eager to reclaim their heritage. Key characters: Ambassador Jiwon Park, now humanity's chief negotiator from a position of strength; Admiral Taeyong Choi, military commander of the reformed human systems; Dr. Hyejin Lee, historical advisor helping reconnect scattered human worlds; Chairwoman Nari Song, elected leader of the new Terran Federation. Ambassador Jiwon delivers humanity's terms to the Council. The scattered human worlds will be united under a new Terran Federation. All Council species must withdraw from 100 systems within the former human empire's borders. Reparations will be paid for the ancient genocidal campaign against humanity. However, Chairwoman Nari surprises the Council by offering an olive branch. Humanity will not seek revenge for ancient crimes. Instead, they propose a reformed Galactic Council with humanity as an equal senior member. The ancient weapons will be mothballed once more, used only if Council species threaten humanity again. The story concludes with Dr. Hyejin standing before a memorial on Earth, dedicated to the ancient humans who sacrificed everything to preserve their species. She reflects that humanity's hidden power was never just their ancient technology. It was their ability to survive, adapt, and ultimately forgive. In orbit above, the predecessor armada maintains its silent vigil, a reminder that humanity will never be helpless again. Admiral Taeyong looks out at the stars from the bridge of eternal reclamation. knowing that humanity's true journey is just beginning. They were once refugees hiding in the darkness. Now they stand ready to reclaim their place among the stars, not as conquerors, but as the guardians of a new galactic peace forged from the lessons of an ancient war. The galaxy has been reminded. Humanity may forgive, but they never forget. Themes: resilience and survival against impossible odds. The consequences of suppressing history and truth. Redemption and choosing peace over revenge. Hidden potential waiting to be awakened. Part 2. The archaeological truth. The Gobi Desert stretched endlessly in all directions, a sea of sand and rock beneath the burning sun. Dr. Hee-Jin Lee wiped sweat from her forehead and stared at the excavation site before her. 3 years of work had led to this moment, and she could barely believe what her instruments were telling her. "The readings are impossible," said Dr. Somin Beck, her research partner and closest friend. Somin's tablet displayed data that defied everything they thought they knew about human history. "This structure is at least 50,000 years old. Maybe older, but the construction materials are advanced, more advanced than anything we can make today." Hee-Jin nodded slowly, her mind racing through possibilities. She had spent her entire career studying ancient human civilizations, but this discovery challenged everything. The structure buried beneath the desert was massive, extending kilometers underground. The initial scan suggested it was artificial, built with purpose and precision by people who should not have existed. Colonel Junho Nam approached from the military tent at the edge of the site. He was a quiet man, assigned by the Global Defense Initiative to oversee security for the excavation. Hee-Jin had initially resented his presence, seeing it as government interference in scientific work. Now she was grateful. Whatever they were about to find, it was bigger than archaeology. "My superiors are getting impatient," Junho said. "They want to know what we've found. The Council's ultimatum has Earth's leaders desperate for anything that might help." "Help how?" Hee-Jin asked. "We're archaeologists, not weapons designers." Junho's expression remained neutral. "Sometimes the past holds answers for the present. Director Yuna Han is on her way here personally. That should tell you how important this is." Director Yuna Han arrived by military transport 3 hours later. She was a small woman with sharp eyes that missed nothing. As head of the Global Defense Initiative's research division, she controlled funding for hundreds of projects across Earth. She rarely left her office in Geneva, and never for simple archaeological digs. "Show me everything," Yuna said without preamble. They descended into the excavation shaft, traveling down through layers of rock and sediment that represented thousands of years of geological history. The structure appeared at a depth of 200 meters, its walls made of a metallic compound that their instruments couldn't identify. The material seemed to absorb and reflect light in strange ways, creating shadows that moved independently of any light source. "We found an entrance yesterday," Hee-Jin explained as they walked through corridors that had been sealed for millennia. The door opened when Somin touched it. "The structure seems to respond to human contact specifically. We've tested it with several species of animals and nothing happens. But when any human approaches, the doors activate." They reached a central chamber that took Hee-Jin's breath away every time she saw it. The room was vast, its ceiling lost in darkness above. The walls were covered in writings and images that seemed to shift and change when viewed from different angles. But the most striking feature was the massive holographic projector in the center, a pillar of crystal that pulsed with internal light. "Can you activate it?" Yuna asked. Somin stepped forward and placed her hand on the crystal. For a moment, nothing happened. Then light exploded through the chamber, and suddenly they were surrounded by images and data streams. A voice began speaking in a language that sounded almost like modern Korean, but different, older, the accent strange to their ears. The translation program in Hee-Jin's tablet struggled to keep up. "Archive activated. Genetic markers confirmed, human. Welcome home." The hologram resolved into the image of a woman wearing clothing that was both familiar and alien. She looked completely human, but the technology visible in the background of her recording was far beyond anything Earth possessed. "If you are seeing this message, then our plan has succeeded," the hologram said. "You are the descendants of refugees. You are the children of an empire that once spanned 1,000 worlds. You are the last hope of a civilization that chose survival over glory." Hee-Jin felt cold despite the heat of the desert above. She looked at Yuna and saw the same shock reflected in the director's face. This couldn't be real. Humanity had evolved on Earth. Every genetic study, every fossil, every piece of evidence pointed to Earth as humanity's cradle. But the hologram continued speaking, and its words challenged everything. 50,000 years ago, our empire stood at the height of its power. We had achieved wonders that made us believe we were invincible. But power breeds enemies, and we made many. The species you now know as the Velcrans, the Thalosians, the Cortesh, and dozens of others formed a coalition against us. They feared our technological advancement. They envied our territories. They wanted to ensure we could never threaten them. The hologram changed, showing images of massive space battles. Ships larger than cities fought and died in the void. Worlds burned. Entire star systems were destroyed by weapons that tore reality itself. Hijin watched in horror as the recording displayed the death of an interstellar civilization. We fought for 300 years, but the coalition was too large, too determined. Our empire collapsed sector by sector. In the final days, our leaders made a terrible choice. Rather than face extinction, we would disappear. We loaded colony ships with refugees, civilians who had no memory of the war. We seeded them on primitive worlds across the galaxy, places so remote and undeveloped that the coalition would never think to look. We erased their memories, suppressed their knowledge, and left them to start again from the beginning. The hologram showed ships departing from dying worlds, carrying the last survivors of humanity's ancient empire to dozens of hidden sanctuaries. Earth was one of them, a small blue world in an unremarkable corner of the galaxy where humans could rebuild without drawing the attention of their enemies. We also built failsafes. The hologram continued. Hidden archives like this one, scattered across the sanctuary worlds. And shipyards. Massive automated facilities hidden in dead star systems where the coalition would never search. Inside those yards, we placed our greatest warships in suspended animation. The predecessor armada, the fleet that defended our empire, waits still for the call to awaken. Soman gasped. Warships? An entire fleet just waiting? The hologram provided coordinates, streams of data that Hyejin's tablet captured automatically. Locations scattered across the galaxy, each one marking a hidden shipyard containing vessels designed for war on a scale modern humanity had never imagined. If you have found this archive, then you have rediscovered your heritage, the hologram said. You may choose to remain hidden, to live in peace on your sanctuary worlds. But if you face extinction again, if the old enemies discover you and threaten your existence, then know this. You are not helpless. The fleet waits, the shipyards sleep, and humanity can rise again. The recording ended and the chamber fell silent. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Hyejin's mind struggled to process what they had just witnessed. Everything she thought she knew about human history was wrong. Humanity hadn't evolved on Earth. They had been planted here as refugees from a war fought before recorded history began. Yuna was the first to move. She pulled out a communication device and began speaking rapidly to someone on the other end. Her voice was steady, but Hyejin could hear the urgency beneath her professional tone. This is Director Han, Priority Alpha. I need immediate connection to the Defense Council. Yes, all of them. I don't care what time it is. Wake them up if necessary. We have found something that changes everything. Colonel Junho stood motionless, staring at the now dark crystal pillar. The Council's ultimatum, he said quietly. They're threatening us with containment. But they don't know, do they? They have no idea that we're the descendants of the precursors. They think we're just another young species to be controlled. The precursors? Soman asked. It's a legend in galactic history, Junho explained. An ancient empire that supposedly ruled the galaxy before the modern council species rose to power. Most scholars think it's mythology, stories made up to explain archaeological ruins that don't fit into accepted history. But if this recording is true, then the precursors weren't mythology. They were us. They were humanity. Yuna finished her call and turned to face them. Her expression was grave. The Defense Council is convening an emergency session. They're invoking protocol ancestors. I never thought I would see this happen in my lifetime. What is protocol ancestors? Hyejin asked. A contingency plan created 30 years ago, after we discovered hints of this facility's existence. Most people thought it was paranoid speculation, a waste of resources based on vague sensor readings and unproven theories. But some leaders believed we might find evidence of humanity's true origins. They prepared for this possibility. Yuna began walking back toward the surface and the others followed. As they climbed out of the ancient structure, Hyejin felt the weight of knowledge pressing down on her. They had answered one of humanity's greatest questions. Where did we come from? But the answer had created 1,000 new problems. Earth's leaders now faced an impossible decision. They could reveal the truth to the Council, prove that humanity was far older and more significant than anyone suspected, but that might make things worse. Part 4. The Battle of Sol. The Council fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation, filling the space around Earth's solar system with thousands of warships. High Arbiter Velshara stood on the command bridge of her flagship, the Eternal Justice, and watched the tactical displays with satisfaction. 5,000 vessels from 200 different civilizations had answered her call. It was the largest military force assembled in 300 years, and it had come to deliver a simple message. The Council's authority was absolute. Begin wide-spectrum broadcast, Velshara ordered. I want every human settlement in this system to hear our message clearly. Her communications officer activated the transmission, and Velshara's voice carried across the void to every human receiver in the Sol system. Humanity, your time to answer the Council's ultimatum has expired. You have refused to withdraw from contested territories. You have refused to dismantle your illegal military installations. You have refused to accept the authority that maintains galactic peace. Therefore, the Council has authorized a containment action. Surrender immediately or face the consequences. Fleet Commander Hyunwoo Park stood in the command center of Earth's orbital defense station, watching the Council fleet with growing dread. His forces consisted of 300 warships, the pride of humanity's military. Against the Council's 5,000 vessels, they were hopelessly outnumbered. Every simulation, every tactical analysis came to the same conclusion. Earth would fall within hours if the Council attacked. All ships to defensive positions, Hyunwoo ordered, his voice steady despite the fear in his heart. Focus on protecting civilian evacuations. If we can't win, at least we can buy time for people to escape. Captain Yoonji Cho commanded the battle carrier Rising Phoenix, Earth's newest and most advanced warship. Her vessel carried 200 fighters and enough firepower to challenge a dozen enemy cruisers. But against thousands, she knew her ship would be little more than a speed bump. Still, she would fight. Earth was her home, and she would defend it to her last breath. All squadrons launch, Yoonji ordered. Wing Commander Jun, take your fighters and harass their forward elements. Don't engage directly, hit-and-run tactics only. Make them chase you. Wing Commander Jun Yu led the first squadron out of the Rising Phoenix's launch bay, his fighter accelerating into the black. He was a veteran pilot with 12 years of combat experience, and he knew exactly what Unji's orders meant. They were going to die today, but they would make the Council pay for every meter of space they took. All fighters, follow my lead, Jun transmitted to his squadron. We're the best humanity has. Let's remind these aliens why they should have left us alone. The Council fleet began its advance. Their strategy was simple and brutal. Heavy dreadnoughts would hammer Earth's orbital defenses while cruisers moved to occupy key positions throughout the solar system. Once Earth's fleet was destroyed, landing, forces would secure major cities and military installations. Humanity would be given one final chance to surrender, and if they refused, the bombardment would begin. High Arbiter Velshara watched human fighters dart forward to engage her fleet's forward elements. The small craft were fast and aggressive, but they were gnats attacking lions. Her point defense system swatted them from space with casual efficiency. Human losses mounted quickly. 10 fighters destroyed, then 20, then 50. They fight well for primitives, one of her officers observed. They fight because they don't know better, Velshara replied. Soon they will learn. The Council is merciful to those who submit, but merciless to those who resist. The first Council dreadnoughts opened fire on lunar military installations. Massive energy beams lanced across space, striking defense platforms and weapons arrays. Explosions bloomed in the airless void as human fortifications died under the onslaught. On Mars, Council cruisers began bombing surface military bases, turning red dust into glass. Fleet Commander Hyunwoo watched his defense network crumble piece by piece. They had held for 20 minutes, longer than most simulations predicted, but the end was inevitable. In another hour, the Council fleet would be in position to begin bombardment of Earth itself. He prepared to give the order to evacuate the command center. Then his sensor officer shouted in surprise, "Sir, I'm detecting massive spatial distortions at the system's edge. Something's coming through from faster than light, but the signatures are wrong. I've never seen readings like this." Hyunwoo turned to his displays, and his heart began to race. The distortions were enormous, indicating something far larger than normal ship transitions. Space itself seemed to be tearing open at multiple points simultaneously. High Arbiter Velshara saw the same readings on her displays. "What is that?" she demanded. "Are the humans trying some kind of experimental weapon?" Before anyone could answer, ships began emerging from the spatial tiers. Not human ships, not council ships. Something else entirely. They were massive, dwarfing even the largest council dreadnoughts. Their hulls were covered in crystalline armor that shifted through colors no natural material should possess. And there were so many of them. 50 ships appeared, then 100, then 200. Captain Daiho Kim sat in the command chair of the Eternal Reclamation, feeling the ancient warship respond to his thoughts with eager precision. Around him, 300 Vanguard ships emerged from their dimensional jump in perfect formation. He had never felt power like this, never imagined that vessels could move and fight with such grace despite their enormous size. "This is Admiral Taeyong Choi to all Council forces," a transmission broadcast across every channel. "You stand before the predecessor armada. You face the descendants of the empire your ancestors thought they destroyed. 50,000 years ago, you hunted humanity to near extinction. Today, the hunted return. You have one chance to withdraw peacefully. Refuse and learn why your ancestors feared us." Velshara's mandibles clicked together in shock. The predecessor armada. It was impossible. The precursors were extinct, destroyed in the ancient war. Every historical record confirmed it. But the ships before her were real, and their technology was terrifying. She had to make a decision quickly. "All fleet maintain formation," she ordered. "These ships may look impressive, but they are ancient. Our weapons have been refined over 10,000 years. We will show them that the Council does not fear ghosts." The Council fleet opened fire with thousands of weapons simultaneously. Energy beams, missiles, kinetic projectiles, all converging on the predecessor ships. It should have been overwhelming. No defense could stop such concentrated firepower. But the ancient ships simply disappeared. Not destroyed. Disappeared. They phased out of normal space, existing temporarily in dimensions the Council's weapons couldn't reach. A heartbeat later, they reappeared behind the Council's formation. Captain Daiho felt the Eternal Reclamation guide his actions, showing him how to use its reality displacement drive. The ship moved through space by briefly stepping outside of it, making conventional weapons useless. He targeted a Council battle group and fired the ship's primary weapon, a causality manipulation beam that didn't just destroy its target, it erased it from existence. 3 Council dreadnoughts simply ceased to be, as if they had never existed at all. All across the battlefield, similar scenes repeated. The Vanguard ships moved with impossible agility, their advanced drives making them untouchable. Their weapons, operated on principles Council species had never mastered, creating destruction that defied understanding. A predecessor ship would fire and its target wouldn't explode. It would simply vanish, removed from reality by weapons that manipulated cause and effect itself. Wing Commander Jun watched in awe as the ancient ships tore through the Council fleet. His fighter squadron had been reduced to 30 survivors, and they had been preparing for death. Now they witnessed the impossible. Ships that should have been museum pieces were demonstrating technology that made the Council's best vessels look primitive. "All human forces clear the battle space," Admiral Taeyong ordered. "Fall back to defensive positions. The Vanguard fleet will handle the Council." Captain Yunji pulled the Rising Phoenix back from the front lines, her crew cheering as they watched the ancient ships fight. The predecessor vessels worked in perfect coordination, their actions synchronized by the ancient AI systems that controlled them. They formed battle networks that allowed them to concentrate fire with devastating precision. High Arbiter Velshara watched her fleet die. Her carefully organized formations shattered under the predecessor attack. Ships that tried to run were caught by vessels that could move faster than thought. Ships that stood and fought were destroyed by weapons they had no defense against. In 10 minutes, she lost 500 vessels. In 20 minutes, 1,000. "All fleet retreat," she finally ordered, abandoning her pride. "Emergency faster than light jumps. Get us out of this system now." But the predecessor ships had anticipated the retreat. They had positioned themselves to cut off escape routes, their reality displacement drives allowing them to be everywhere at once. Council ships that tried to jump to faster than light found their drives disrupted by technology that manipulated space itself. They were trapped, helpless, waiting for death. Part 3. Awakening the Fleet Admiral. Taeyong Choi sat in the command chair of the Dawn Explorer, studying the navigation charts displayed across the holographic screens before him. The coordinates from the ancient archive led to a region of space officially designated as the Veiled Sector, a volume of collapsed neutron stars and dangerous radiation that no sane species would visit without good reason. It was the perfect hiding place. "How much longer?" he asked the navigation officer. 3 hours until we reach the designated coordinates, sir," came the reply. Taeyong nodded and allowed himself a moment of doubt. The past week had been chaotic beyond belief. The discovery in the Gobi Desert had turned human history inside out. The revelation that Earth was a sanctuary world, that humanity descended from refugees of an ancient empire, had shaken every certainty people held about their place in the universe. And now he was leading a small task force into unknown space, searching for weapons that might not even exist. His task force consisted of 6 ships, 3 military cruisers, 2 science vessels, and 1 stealth corvette. It was a tiny force compared to the armadas the Council commanded, but it was all Earth could spare while maintaining defensive positions around the home system. If the Council decided to enforce their ultimatum early, these ships would make no difference. Their only hope lay in what they might find at the end of this journey. Captain Daeho Kim commanded the stealth corvette Silent Dawn. He was young for a ship captain, only 32 years old, but he had proven himself during border skirmishes with pirates and hostile species. His ship was equipped with the best stealth technology humanity possessed, designed to slip past enemy sensors undetected. If there were dangers at the coordinates, the Silent Dawn would scout ahead. Commander Minji Shin worked in the engineering bay of the Dawn Explorer, preparing equipment they might need to interface with ancient technology. She was brilliant, one of the best engineers in the fleet, and she had spent the last week studying every scrap of data recovered from the archive. If anyone could communicate with systems built 50,000 years ago, it would be her. Lieutenant Sang-Hyun Oh sat at his cryptography station, working through the complex activation codes the archive had provided. The ancient humans had protected their hidden fleet with sophisticated security systems. Even with the codes, accessing the shipyards would require skill and patience. One wrong move might trigger defensive protocols that could destroy them all. "Admiral, we're approaching the target area," the sensor officer announced. "Radiation levels are increasing. Visibility is poor. We're effectively blind to anything more than a few thousand kilometers away." "Perfect place for a secret," Taeyong muttered. "Captain Kim, take the Silent Dawn forward. Full sensor sweep. Look for anything artificial." Daeho's voice came through the communication system. "Understood, Admiral. Moving ahead now. If I find anything interesting, you'll be the first to know." The Silent Dawn disappeared from the Dawn Explorer's sensors almost immediately, cloaked and silent as its name suggested. Taeyong waited, feeling the familiar tension that came before every significant military operation. He had fought in 3 major engagements during his career, faced death more times than he cared to count, but this felt different. They weren't going into battle. They were searching for ghosts. 20 minutes passed before Daeho's voice returned and the young captain sounded shaken. "Admiral, you need to see this. Transmitting coordinates now. And sir, you're not going to believe it." Taeyong ordered the task force forward, following the path the Silent Dawn had taken. As they emerged from a particularly dense radiation cloud, the sensors suddenly cleared, and what they revealed made Taeyong's breath catch in his throat. "That's impossible," the sensor officer whispered. A structure hung in space before them, but calling it a structure was like calling a star a candle. It was vast beyond comprehension, a construct that dwarfed any artificial object humanity had ever built. The outer shell appeared to be composed of a material that shifted between solid matter and pure energy, creating patterns of light that hurt to look at directly. The structure was roughly spherical, its diameter roughly equal to that of a gas giant planet. "I'm reading dimensional distortions," Commander Minji reported from her station. "The structure exists partially outside normal space. That's why it doesn't show up on standard sensors. It's hiding in a pocket dimension. Can we get closer?" Taeyong asked. "The Silent Dawn has found what appears to be an entrance," Deho reported. "It's responding to our approach. I think it recognizes our ships as human." Taeyong made his decision. All ships approach slowly. Battle stations but do not power weapons. We don't want to appear hostile to whatever systems are still active. As the task force moved toward the structure, a section of the outer shell began to change. Metal and energy flowed like liquid, creating an opening large enough for the ships to pass through. Lights activated inside, creating a path deeper into the construct. "This is either a very good sign or a very bad one," Taeyong said. "Captain Kim, stay close. Everyone else follow me in." They passed through the entrance and found themselves inside a space that should not have been able to exist. The interior was larger than the exterior. Impossible physics made real through technology Taeyong couldn't begin to understand. They were flying through a vast chamber filled with ships. Not hundreds of ships, not thousands. The sensors counted and recounted, struggling to process what they were detecting. Tens of thousands of warships hung in perfect rows, suspended in energy fields that had kept them preserved for millennia. Each vessel was enormous, dwarfing even Earth's largest battleships. Their designs were beautiful and terrible, combining organic curves with harsh angles in ways that suggested they had been grown rather than built. "This is the predecessor armada," Lieutenant Sang-hyun said, his voice full of awe. "This is humanity's ancient fleet." A signal suddenly activated across all communication channels. A voice spoke in that ancient dialect of Korean they had heard in the archive recording, but this time it sounded mechanical, artificial. "Human genetic markers detected. Identity confirmed. Welcome, descendants. I am Sentinel-7, guardian intelligence of this facility. State your purpose." Commander Minji quickly adjusted her translation protocols and responded, "We are representatives of Earth, one of the sanctuary worlds. We seek to reactivate this fleet. Our people face extinction from the species coalition. We need help." Silence stretched for several seconds. Then Sentinel-7 spoke again, and Taeyong thought he heard sadness in the artificial voice. "The coalition still exists. The old enemies still hunt our people. Then the cycle continues and history repeats itself." "Can you activate the fleet?" Taeyong asked. "Full activation requires 6 weeks. Systems must be checked, crews must be trained, weapons must be calibrated. However, I can provide immediate access to the Vanguard fleet. 300 ships designated for rapid deployment. They require minimal preparation and can be controlled by small crews augmented by automated systems. 300 ships. It wasn't the full armada, but it was more than Earth's entire military could field. Taeyong felt hope stirring in his chest for the first time since the Council's ultimatum. "What kind of weapons do these ships possess?" Commander Minji asked. "The Vanguard ships are equipped with reality displacement drives, causality manipulation weapons, quantum shield systems, and star-breaching cannons. They were designed to combat multiple Council species simultaneously. Each vessel can function independently or as part of a coordinated battle network. I must warn you, however, that many of these weapon systems are prohibited by current galactic law. Their use will mark humanity as a threat to all civilized species." Taeyong laughed bitterly. "The Council already sees us as a threat. They've given us 72 hours to surrender our freedom or face annihilation. I think we're past worrying about galactic law." "Then I will begin reactivation procedures," Sentinel-7 announced. "Admiral, you will need pilots and commanders for the Vanguard ships. The ancient vessels can teach new crews quickly, but someone must make command decisions. Choose your officers carefully. These ships are powerful, but they are also dangerous. In the wrong hands, they could destroy everything you seek to protect." Captain Deho's voice came through the communication system. "Admiral, I volunteer to pilot one of the ancient ships. The Silent Dawn is a good vessel, but if we're going to face the Council's fleet, I want something with real teeth." "Are you sure?" Taeyong asked. "We don't know what these ships can do. They've been sleeping for 50,000 years. That's why I'm sure," Deho replied. "Someone needs to test them, see what they're capable of. Besides, I've always wanted to fly something that could make the Council nervous." Taeyong considered the request. Deho was reckless sometimes, but he was also one of the best pilots in the fleet. If anyone could handle an ancient warship, it would be him. Permission granted, Captain. Choose your vessel carefully. Over the next hours, the Vanguard ships began their awakening. Energy flowed through systems that had been dormant for millennia. Lights activated in sequence, creating patterns that swept through the ancient vessels like fire spreading through dry grass. The ships themselves seemed to stir, as if waking from a long sleep. Part 5. A New Galactic Order. 3 months had passed since the Battle of Sol, and the galaxy had transformed in ways nobody could have predicted. The Grand Assembly Chamber of Nexus Prime, once a place where the Council dictated terms to lesser species, now hosted a very different kind of gathering. Today humanity would not be judged. Today humanity would judge. Ambassador Jiwan Park walked through the corridors of the station with her head held high. The last time she had been here, she had stood as a supplicant begging for understanding. Now she walked as a representative of the most powerful military force the galaxy had seen in 50,000 years. The other species watched her pass with expressions ranging from fear to respect to barely concealed hatred. Behind her walked Admiral Taeyong Choi, his presence a reminder that humanity's newfound power was not theoretical. The Admiral commanded a fleet of ancient warships that had defeated the Council's best forces without suffering a single loss. That victory had shocked the galaxy and forced every civilization to reassess their understanding of history and power. Also in the human delegation was Dr. Hyejin Lee, the archaeologist whose discovery had changed everything. She carried data tablets containing evidence of humanity's true origins, proof that the precursors and humans were the same species. The Council could no longer dismiss humanity as primitive newcomers. They had to acknowledge the uncomfortable truth that they were dealing with the descendants of their greatest ancient enemy. Chairwoman Nari Song led the delegation. She had been elected to lead the new Terran Federation, a unified government that represented not just Earth, but the 17 other human sanctuary worlds that had been discovered in the past 3 months. Each world had its own unique culture and history, but all shared the same genetic heritage and the same determination to never be threatened with extinction again. They entered the Grand Assembly Chamber to find it packed with representatives from every Council species. High Arbiter Velshara sat in her elevated position, but her posture lacked the confidence she had displayed during humanity's last visit. The defeat at Sol had broken more than her fleet. It had shattered the illusion of Council invincibility. The chamber fell silent as the human delegation took their position at the center. This time they were not standing in the defendant's place. They stood as equals, perhaps more than equals, and everyone present knew it. Chairwoman Nari began speaking, her voice calm and measured. 3 months ago, this council delivered an ultimatum to humanity. You demanded we surrender our freedom, dismantle our defenses, and submit to your authority. You threatened us with containment, with military action, with the destruction of everything we had built. You believed we were weak, that we would have no choice but to obey. She paused, letting her words sink in. You were wrong. You were wrong about our strength. You were wrong about our history. And you were wrong about your right to dictate terms to us. Murmurs of dissent rippled through the chamber, but Velshara raised a hand for silence. She had learned to be careful with humanity. They had demonstrated their power conclusively, and pushing them too far could result in consequences the galaxy couldn't afford. What do you want? Velshara asked bluntly. You have proven your military superiority. You have revealed your connection to the ancient precursors. You have united the human sanctuary worlds under a single government. So tell us plainly, what are your demands? Admiral Taeyong stepped forward, his expression stern. First, all Council forces will withdraw from the 100 star systems within the borders of the old precursor empire. Those territories belong to our ancestors, and they belong to humanity now. You have 72 hours to begin evacuation. Any Council presence remaining after that deadline will be considered hostile. Several alien delegates began shouting protests, but Nari raised her hand. Second, the Council will pay reparations for the genocidal campaign conducted against our ancestors 50,000 years ago. We have evidence from multiple archaeological sites proving that your civilizations formed a coalition, specifically to exterminate the precursor species. That crime demands acknowledgement and compensation. The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates from dozens of species stood and shouted denials, accusations, and threats. How dare humanity demand reparations for a war that happened 50 millennia ago? How dare they claim entire sectors of space based on ancient territorial claims? It was madness. It was unreasonable. It was an insult to the careful balance of power that had maintained galactic peace for thousands of years. Dr. Hiejin activated her data tablets, and holographic displays filled the chamber with images from the archaeological sites, battle records from the ancient war, communications between coalition species planning the extinction of the precursor empire, evidence of deliberate destruction of human colonies, and the systematic erasure of precursor culture from galactic memory. "You tried to make us disappear," Hiejin said quietly, but her voice carried through the chamber's acoustics perfectly. "You destroyed our empire, scattered our survivors, and then rewrote history to pretend we never existed. You built your modern civilizations on the ruins of ours and hoped we would never discover the truth. But we did discover it, and now we demand justice. The evidence was undeniable." Species that had long claimed to be peaceful founders of the Council were revealed as participants in genocide. Civilizations that prided themselves on ethical behavior had blood on their hands, even if that blood was 50,000 years old. Velshara closed her eyes briefly, then opened them with resignation. "What you ask for is difficult. The territorial claims alone would displace billions of Council citizens. The reparations would bankrupt entire worlds. You are demanding the impossible." "No," Chairwoman Nari replied. "We are demanding justice. But I did not come here today only to make demands. I also came to offer an alternative." The chamber quieted as delegates leaned forward to hear what humanity proposed. Nari took a deep breath and continued. "We could take revenge. We could use our ancient fleet to conquer and destroy as your ancestors did to us. We have the power to burn your worlds, to shatter your civilizations, to make you experience the same terror and loss that our ancestors suffered. That would be justice of a sort." Admiral Taiyong nodded. "Our fleet has fully awakened. We now command over 10,000 predecessor warships, each more powerful than anything in your arsenals. We could win a galactic war. The question is whether we should start one." The threat hung in the air, undeniable and terrifying. Every delegate in the chamber understood what humanity was saying. They had the power to destroy the Council completely, and everyone knew it. "But," Nari continued, and her tone softened slightly, "revenge is a poison that destroys those who drink it. Our ancestors chose to scatter and hide rather than fight to the death. They chose survival over vengeance. Perhaps we should honor their wisdom." She outlined humanity's actual proposal. The contested territories would be returned to human control, but current Council inhabitants would be given 10 years to relocate with full compensation. Reparations would be paid, but over a century rather than immediately, allowing Council economies to adjust. The ancient weapons would be mothballed again, kept in reserve but not actively deployed unless the Council threatened humanity. Most importantly, Nari proposed a reformed Galactic Council. Humanity would join as a senior member with full voting authority. The Council's military would be restructured to prevent any single coalition from threatening another species. New laws would be enacted to protect young civilizations from the kind of containment action the Council had threatened against humanity. "We are offering you peace," Nari said simply. "Not the peace of submission, but the peace of equals. We will not dominate you, but we will never again allow you to dominate us. We will share the galaxy or we will divide it. The choice is yours." The debate that followed lasted for 6 hours. Species argued among themselves, forming and breaking alliances as they tried to decide how to respond to humanity's ultimatum. Some wanted to refuse, to call humanity's bluff and test whether they would really start a war. Others recognized that humanity was offering them an escape from an impossible situation. Finally, Velshara stood and spoke with the authority of the Council's senior military commander. "The Council accepts your terms. We will begin territorial withdrawals immediately. Reparations will be negotiated through proper diplomatic channels, and we welcome humanity as a senior member of a reformed Galactic Council." She paused, her mandibles clicking softly. "But understand this, Chairwoman Song, Admiral Choi, all of humanity. We accept these terms not because we believe you are merciful, but because we recognize you are powerful. Peace built on fear is fragile. If you truly want a stable galaxy, you must prove that humanity has learned wisdom along with reclaiming power." Nari nodded slowly. Then we will prove it through our actions. Humanity has survived extinction, reclaimed our heritage, and won our freedom. Now we must prove we deserve to keep it. The session ended with formal agreements to begin implementation of the new galactic order. As the human delegation left the chamber, Ambassador G1 felt exhausted but satisfied. They had come seeking justice and found a path toward lasting peace.